Welcome. Welcome to another time to say a story matters. Your story matters, our story matters, everyone's story matters. And today we have as our guest and as our participant in this conversation, Jim Gish. And Jim has a broad background. Jim and I got to know each other better when the town began to talk about bridges and tunnels and cars and streets and all those kind of things, and then began to actually get into this whole thing. And you've been right in the center of that. I admired the way you handled all your presentations and your sense of encouragement and your sense of helping people see perspective. So there's a whole rich background there. So you tell us a little bit about yourself that got you to that moment in time?
Sure, Len. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be on the show today. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
The story of the Bridge and Rail project for me started in January of 2016 when I was hired by the town of Middlebury to serve as community liaison for the project.
Mm-hmm.
This was a new initiative on the part of VTrans to fund a local resident to serve as the kind of the center of communication between the municipality, town government, town stakeholders, the citizens of the town, and the team that was going to build the project. VTrans, Federal Highway, contractors, VHB, the designer, and so forth. So that's where the project started for me. I guess you could say that the run-up to it started in 1998 when my wife and I and our three sons moved to Middlebury.
Mm-hmm.
And we began life here. And during that time, I was an editor for a publishing company. And so I had been an English major at college.
Mm-hmm.
And got into publishing out of college. And for the next 30-some years, I served as an editor for textbook publishing companies. Companies that published textbooks on the culinary arts, on graphic design, on a range of subject areas. And that took me around the country, and it taught me the art of publishing. That career wound down around 2015. And I was looking for ways to give back to the community that's been my home since 1998. And this job was advertised in the paper, and I applied for it and was given the job, and we got underway.
Good. That's a publisher.
An editor in a publishing company.
Okay.
Yeah, it's as an English major, you come out of school and there are many things you can do. An English major, an English degree is a great start to the world.
Right.
And it taught me many different skills, all of which I kind of refined in my time in publishing. And many of the skills that I learned in the world of publishing, I put directly to use in my job as community liaison.
So the job, did it turn out to be what you expected, or were there some unexpected things that emerged as you took on that responsibility?
Then I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect.
Okay.
This was brand new territory for me.
Right.
I had served on the Isley Library Board of Trustees. I had served on the state Vermont Library Board. I'd done that kind of sort of volunteer activity in the community. But this was a whole new ball game for me. And so I went into it really without a lot of expectations and just kind of relied on my instincts and the folks I was working with to figure out the best way forward.
How do you measure or think about the response that you were getting in those early days? Was it favorable? Was it unfavorable? Was it questionable?
I think I would say it's fair to say I walked into a charged situation. Much as had been the case with Cross Street Bridge, with the new town offices, with all the other kind of major municipal projects that I had observed in my 20-some years in Middlebury, there was high feeling on both sides. And you know, that's democracy in action, and it's a good thing to see. I had to figure out, however, how to navigate that to the fairness of all parties, but also to get the job done, which was kind of my main charge, in the right way. And the right way I had to figure out with the help of many others along the way.
There are some old ways that you had learned, which came into play, I'm sure, right away. What were some of those things that you'd learned before about how do you help people feel better about something they're not so sure about?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, there are basic, you know, skills like listening to people, you know, solving problems, thinking about next steps. You know, I work with probably not an exaggeration to say hundreds of authors in my time, and as an editor, and you know, being an author is kind of a lonely occupation, and it's you know, a difficult challenge to write a book. And so I learned to work with a variety of different personalities, and you know, to kind of figure out what they needed to succeed. And some of that experience, I think, was very helpful in this job, where you know, I tried to be fair-minded and to listen to all sides, while again, you know, at the same time, trying to find a way to get this project done, and move on.
When you look at it, what has this project really contributed to Middlebury that's different than what had been before?
It's a lot safer. That was the starting point.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the first things that I did when I started the job was to go down with some other folks underneath Merchants Row Bridge and Main Street Bridge, which were the two bridges that were in deteriorated state. These had been built in the 1920s, and so they were fast approaching their 100-year obsolescence. And I was taken aback by the lack of structural integrity from an English major's point of view that I was looking at.
I remember seeing those pictures, and I thought to myself, holy smokes, why hasn't some car gone through the just down into the thing?
Yeah. Well, in fact, we had, you know, a chunk of sidewalk was one of the last things that fell before we replaced
Yes,
those
I saw
bridges.
that.
So
sometimes it's nice to have something happen like that proves why you should be doing this.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you remember in I think it was October of 2007 or 8, we had the derailment.
Yes.
Right along Otter Creek, and that was a serious situation for our emergency services crew and for folks who. I had an office in the Battelle block back then, and we were evacuated, you know, very quickly out of that area. So it was a safety concern for the freight trains that were passing through our town, most of which carry fuel oil, you know, up to the Chittenden County area, and for our roadways. So what we achieved, you know, right off the bat was a safer infrastructure downtown. But given the scope of the project and the good partnership that formed between the town of Middlebury, Federal Highway, V-Trans, the other players, Middlebury benefited far beyond just, you know, a safer environment downtown.
A couple people have talked to me about that whole experience and about your role in that, and were very affirming. They said that they felt that there was something different about how this was being handled as opposed to some other project that they had been aware of in another place where they lived before they moved to Middlebury. So what was different about what you were doing with this?
Well, as I learned through the course of this project, there's kind of a pro forma way that public engagement is handled. And it's with emails that go out and inform people of road closings and construction activities and that kind of thing. And it's kind of done at a remove. What was different about the way that we handled it in Middlebury is that I was on the scene every day, and so I could communicate directly with people what was happening, answer their questions, and I felt that we had a direct connection with people, and it wasn't coming through a bureaucracy. It was coming from me, and and because I had a seat at the table. The table being, the meetings with V-Trans and the meetings with the select board and so forth. I was privy to pretty much everything that was going on with the project and behind the scenes. And that allowed me to be a transparent communicator with the public and with the stakeholders about what was happening, why, and what our expectations were.
A seat at the table makes all the difference, doesn't it?
It makes a huge difference, and I have to say that the advantage there was V-Trans, and fairly early on, a V-Trans engineer named Wayne Simmons was brought into the project. Wayne had been a champion of the accelerated bridge construction, which we had seen up in East Middlebury, and Wayne brought a lot of kind of creativity and strategic thinking into the picture. And one of the first things he said to me was, Jim, this is a really valuable position for us and for the town, and we want you at every meeting. And so for 2 years, I was up in Montpelier every week at the team meetings, which every aspect of the project was discussed. And that was worth a lot, both in terms of the information that I gleaned and the kind of education I got, but also in terms of the partnerships that were formed at that point to achieve a common goal. So.
Do you feel that it's all came out as good, and if not better, than what was expected?
I think so. Yeah, I do. When I drive through town now and see Triangle Park, which is really just a restoration of the village green as it was in the 1840s before the railroad came through. I'm proud of that. When I look at the new Lazarus Park and recall what that area was when we got started, I'm very proud of that and of the way that the community wanted to dedicate that park to the Lazarus family. So I'm proud of much of what we accomplished, and inevitably there are things you learn along the way. And you wish you'd known a little more about.
Right.
And then these are minor things, maybe having to do with how concrete was laid in a particular place and that kind of thing. But overall, I think it was personally speaking, I think it was a tremendous benefit for Middlebury to have this project come through and to get some of the kind of value adds from the project that came along.
Yeah. My wife and I have done what most people have done in the pandemic, and that's stay at home, and do not travel very much. So we went down to Marble Works. Of course, we used to go for all our medicines down there, but then that all changed.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed with the back view that you now see when you sit by the pizza place and you look up there and see the whole town, and you see the church up here, and you see, I can't remember what was the last, but it's a panorama.
Yeah,
that had never been there before.
No, you're absolutely right. And there's two aspects of that jump out to me. One you mentioned, which is St. Stephen's, which as you come at, previously when you came up Main Street, St. Stephen's was screened by some kind of overgrown trees that had kind of sprouted up in the rail corridor, and you really couldn't see this this beautiful 1826 church in the middle of our town green. Well, now it's fully integrated into the kind of core of
Right,
downtown.
it's right up the road. It's like you
Yeah.
know, the path that takes you up to Main Street or takes you down from Main Street. There's the St. Stephen's Church, you know.
Yeah, and so it shares now the view with the Congregational Church, which was the kind of the postcard view. The other one is we're really keen to create a vibrant and worthy gateway between Main Street and Marble Works, and of course that became Lazarus Park. But one of the things that we did there was to underground all the utilities. Now that was directly a result of the partnership we had with V-Trans. That wasn't something they had to do. It had to do with the overhead lines being in the way of the cranes that were going to come in and set the precast. But one thing led to another, and so all of those utility lines were undergrounded, so that when you stand at the top of Lazarus Park and look into Marble Works, or from Marble Works up,
Right.
you've got this wonderful view here. And those are things that are, I think, tangible benefits to the town.
Yeah, but what was tangible to Ann and I, but was hidden for a long time. You come down Seymour, and you make that swoop down underneath the bridge, you know, and go up there to Greg's there. Okay, you look up that street, and I could never figure out where they're going to get off this train.
Oh, right. Yeah.
From down there, you just could not figure it out. And then the last couple days ago, or a couple weeks ago, I guess it was, we decided to take a ride. So we went, and here is this train station, and it just sits there, and it's beautiful. And we are people who've been on trains a lot, and love train stations, and it feels good. So. We pulled over and we sat for a while, and we sat on the benches, and we kept saying, "Where's the schedule? I want to see a train," you know. And there was a grandmother there with her grandchild, and she had. We talked with her a little bit. She had expected that there would be a train there, and so she brought her grandson down
to see it,
to see the train, you know, and then finally they went because the train wasn't going to come that day.
We do have freight trains coming through there, but Amtrak is coming in July, I'm told. And it was interesting as we got into the later stages of the project, and there was more kind of visibility to the Amtrak station. That became something that the community was genuinely excited about.
Oh, right.
You could board a train in Middlebury, Vermont, and get off it in Penn Station, New York.
Yeah, I spent lots of time in New York City, coming in from New Jersey, going to graduate school, and going to the theater. You know, It was just, and we missed that. You know.
Well, part of my publishing career was in Manhattan, and so for both my wife and I, who was in publishing too, so that New York City is a special place for us.
Yeah, we took our grandchildren. We went to New York to babysit with our grandchildren, and my son and his wife were in the theater, and they were at a big conference, and we were there. So we're out in this two-stroller. And all of a sudden, Thomas gets up. He's 4, I think. And he says, "This city is humongous."
And he's right.
And he's right, you know. And that was a feeling I had about the train station.
Yeah.
You know?
It was a neat part of the project.
We're also we're older, and you know, and coming out of this COVID period. We're looking to get from the parking lot to the place where you go shop. Make sure you can do that. So we're picking out places around town that have have enough distance that will allow us to go and park there and then walk and walk and walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so we call it our parking lot strategy. And so the train station is one, and the other end of the park is another.
Sure.
And
that's great.
so you do your exercise wherever you can, you know.
When town was shut down in summer of 2020, there was a lot of focus on because of the lack of parking right downtown, on encouraging people to park a little further out and walk into town. And that was a nice aspect of the project that was encouraged by Porter.
Maybe we can run some classes for people on parking lot strategies.
Yeah, sure.
No. So, what else would you like to say, kind of in summary, about this project as you reflect back?
Yeah, well, I would say that it was an honor and a privilege to have this position on behalf of Middlebury, and I think that we benefited from strong leadership all around. From the town manager and the select board. Brian Carpenter in particular is the chair of the select board. And we had some great support in town, from the Better Middlebury Partnership.
Right.
Karen DeGay is the executive director there. And so Neighbors Together, I don't think the project would have turned out as well as it did if we hadn't had this tremendous volunteer group of Neighbors Together that was managed by Nancy Malcolm and Linda Horn. So, I had a central role because of the nature of my position, but it was many hands that
you had a group
that lifted this project. Yeah. And it's if there's a tale here or a kind of a moral to the story, it's about the value of working together in partnerships and what you can accomplish. And it's an old storyline, but I found that it was absolutely true in the case of this project.
Yeah,
in a very real way.
So the other subject that we might talk about might also apply to that same kind of hope and expectation, and that is, can you tell us a little bit about where we are in examining the possibility of the library?
Sure, I'm happy to do that, Len. So as the project wound down, I was looking for other opportunities to put to work these kind of public engagement or communication skills that I learned in the course of the 6 years on the Middlebury Bridge and Rail project. And like many in Middlebury, I was following the move on the part of the select board and the library board of trustees to create a committee that would kind of oversee the plans to, as Isley Library celebrates its 100th birthday in 2024, to put together a plan that will take the library into the future, both from a facilities point of view and from a community needs point of view.
So I understand this committee and others have begun to visit other libraries. Can you tell something about that?
Yeah, sure. So I was asked to join the community as a communications specialist, and Dana Hart, the librarian, arranged for us to go up to South Burlington's brand new library off of Dorset Street. It's part of the City Hall up there, and then the Pearson Library in Shelburne. So that was interesting to see, how other communities recently have approached new library facilities for their communities.
Both of these are fairly new projects, right?
South Burlington is brand new. Pearson is a year or two old, I think, or maybe a little older than that now.
Right. And so, what might we see in terms of thinking about libraries and how we can share information about what we would like to see in the library? What does that look like for the?
Sure, I think there'll be a series of opportunities for the public to contribute their ideas about what they'd like to see in the library. A lot of that happened a few years ago when there was a similar effort to kind of define the future of the library. So we'll see more of that going forward. I've just started a blog, which I'll be talking about, as I did with the downtown project. I'll be talking about the initiatives that are underway and surveying people on what they'd like to see in Isley. So for me, it's a great kind of follow-up to the Bridge and Rail project for me personally.
So it's right at the beginning of a planning process now.
A lot of work has taken place already, but I'd say this is kind of a big push toward a resolution.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that, and there'll be much more to come from the Isley team. We're calling it the Isley 100 project team to mark the 100th birthday of the library.
And so that's the team from the staff, is from the community, from...
Sure. So we have 2 members of the Board of Trustees, and we have community members, Dana Hart from the library. There's a team of people who have specialties that have been assembled to kind of develop the strengths of the committee and make sure we've got covered what we need to do going forward here. Yeah. So it's a very exciting project, and as I said, I'm looking forward to bringing more of this information out to the public about what the library's needs are and what our opportunities are with this grand old library.
Yeah. It is a grand old library, and the night, that last meeting we both attended, showed how beautiful that area is, and the expectations of what might happen elsewhere.
Yeah. It's the South Burlington and Shelburne libraries are really nice modern libraries. Neither one of them has what we have in our lobby area, which is this classic, elegant room that's redolent of what a library should be, in my opinion. The library needs a lot of work, and it needs to be brought into the 21st century in some ways. But we've got a good starting point with the building that's here, I think.
Is there any timetable established about this project?
There is a detailed timetable that's been laid out that we are following, and but it's got some options there, and I think we're still in pretty early days to share. Okay, well, by 2023 we want to have done this, that, and the other thing. I'll be sharing that with the community through the blog as we get up and running.
Okay.
And the blog's will be available right on the Isley Library homepage. And so anybody who wants to follow the adventures of Isley Library as they followed the adventures of the Rail and Bridge Project can do so, and I'll be having regular updates there.
And I would add to that an invitation to engage MCTV in the whole process of that set of interpretation and presentation, and figure out how we might put this to pictures that people can see, and movies, and stories that we can tell. One of the great things about your experiences has been that you really have engaged in incredible stories. And this library represents another step forward in an incredible story.
I felt my job, and maybe this is an English major's interpretation of my job, was to create a storyline for the project downtown, a narrative for the project that people could understand and follow. And I think we did that, and we are doing the same thing with Isley Library. Stories are the most intriguing thing we could come across in our lives.
Absolutely.
And so I was proud to be a part of the downtown construction project story, and I'm proud to be a part of the Isley ongoing story.
Well, thank you for telling us your story today, and in so many exciting ways. And we'll come back and talk some more.
Thank you for having me, Len. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. This is The Story Matters, and we've heard today that it really does matter in many significant ways. So tell your story.